Heaton, what did you figure out?
So Jen, I took Justin pants shopping, and we got him pants that are fitted for him as a human, and he looked fantastic. Like the rest of the day, I was just like, you look great. But like pleated pants, they fit right. They're the right waist. And it's just huge upgrade. He looked amazing.
You're a big boy now.
I am.
This is the beginning of the rest of Justin's life. It wasn't Bella.
Yeah.
It was the pants.
I will say that we didn't spend as much time going through the wardrobe as I was imagining in my head for two reasons. Number one, Brian had his Founders Day event, and if Heaton was in town, and we're kind of pledged to that to make sure that we meet and hang out with everybody. But then also, Heaton got along famously with Bella. For somebody that despised this girl from the moment she was conceived, because it meant that a private karaoke room that Heaton had access to 24/7 was going to go away because it was her nursery. They got along famously. Like really, really, really got along, to the point where I had to pull Heaton away from doing bits with Bella so he could go through my wardrobe.
Yeah, I've done a 180 on Bella. Like I was up as of like 6 months ago or whatever I last visited, I guess Christmas or New Year's. Like I upgraded her to neutral, right? Like I no longer disliked her, but she was neutral. Now I adore Bella. I like her way more than Justin. Like Justin, you've fallen down a peg, and she's gone up 8 pegs. No, big fan of Bella. And Jen, I knocked that out of the goddamn park. I was doing bits with her. I was playing with her. I think little kids really like when respectable looking men debase themselves for their amusement, and I am happy to do that. I will Dick Van Dyke over furniture again and again and again to make that girl laugh.
Aw, sounds like it was a very important weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It was very wholesome.
That's cute.
Very wholesome. And then I heard tale as Jen was coming in here, Heaton, that there was more work done with Jen as promised on this show.
Yes. Jen helped me select pictures for my dating profile. It was actually really enlightening too. Because like I had selected a bunch of pictures that I thought like, this is a good picture of me. Actually, like Justin, there's one where you and I are at the Automaton concert because I thought the outfits were snappy. And I think Jen very like accurately looked at it and she's like, it's like you're auditioning to be a famous person, not like you're trying to get a girlfriend. And I was like, that is deeply insightful, because I think subconsciously I was going, look, I am a person of value. Look at how high value I am. But they're all kind of one specific, pseudo celebrity headshot pictures in one way or another. And so Jen went through and was like, here's one of you with Wallace that is very endearing. Here's one of you, kayaking in a glacier or something, which indicates that you travel a lot. And so it was very, very good to get her perspective on it. And let us hope that in the same way that your life has been irreparably changed through me buying you pants, maybe my life will be irreparably changed by getting a wife.
Well, let me add, for clarity, Heaton picking out pants that I bought. So he did not buy me pants, but I did buy his time for him to point at pants that I purchased, which I was very happy with the relationship. But just for clarity, Jen, how would you describe Heaton's photos on his dating profile?
I actually think he nailed it in his own description. It was like he was trying to try out for like, I think the way I put it at lunch was like, it looked like you were trying out for Bill Maher, where like all the things that I love about you as a friend, I felt like we're missing. And also I feel like a woman will want to know that you have a giant dog that she's going to share a bed with. And so the fact that there was no Wallace, I was like, we need Wallace in here.
Dear listeners, no Wallace photos in Heaton's dating profile.
Yeah. And so I got to go through Heaton's phone, which was very fun. And the one picture that I just hope to God that you put in there is there's a picture with Wallace dressed as a dinosaur. Andrew's in all red in like a Santa Claus-esque vibe. It feels very Christmas.
I'm in a
and then he
Star
has
Trek
his hand.
Wrath of Khan era uniform.
A Starfleet uniform.
See, I don't understand that, which means that You wouldn't want me to swipe whichever way is correct. But you want the Star Trek fan. And I was just like, this is so good. And Andrew's like, it makes me look like a nerd. And I was like, you are a nerd.
Yeah.
Like, advertise it. This one's so good. Did that picture make the cut? Because I love that picture.
It did. But see, this is the other reason that this is really important, or helpful. It's not so much that I have a problem coming off as a nerd, because you're right. I absolutely am a nerd. Like, and I'm not going to try to trick anybody on that, right?
You put a Klingon hand weapon on your wall.
Yeah. No one's debating this bit, least of all me. No, the reason that I initially didn't like that photo is I don't think it's a good photo of my face. I think I am less attractive in it. When I'm looking at that compared to other photos, I'm like, oh, that guy's kind of squiggly. But I am also not really able to select for the female gaze, and having your input on that of like, oh, this is heartwarming, this is very endearing, it shows that you're fun and you've got this dog and you're doing this stuff. I'm like, okay, not what I thought would have lit somebody up, but let's put it in there and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm so in love with that picture.
I think it also shows you got to have a little honesty.
Yeah.
Like they can't all be beauty shots, or else people are going to like, what is he hiding? What's going on? If you have one where it's like, all right, this is like a more candid photo and it's not the most flattering in the world, at least people are like, okay, if that's the basement, then and up there is how I look when with stars in my eyes, like then yeah, that's good. I think women can work with that. Really. So this is my question for you, Jen, because one of the things that is often I've heard from women on dating apps is a chronic fibbing from my male compatriots about lying about their height, because height is something that is very, very, very sorted for. Heaton is legitimately a taller guy. So I almost feel like you need to have something in there that clearly shows he is a tall person.
I think my favorite picture does that too, because you can see the big dog and Andrew standing behind it.
Yeah.
Looking.
There's also one that Jen pointed out that was already in there that I kept. It's from a wedding a couple of years ago where I'm hanging out with a bunch of my improv friends from New York, so very dear friends of mine. This particular photo is me with 3 of the ladies from that cohort. So we're all very vibrantly dressed. I'm wearing a good Heaton window pane British game show host blazer. And they all look, stunning, beautiful, just very, very lovely day. But in that particular photo, and I didn't select it for that reason, I selected it as a, look, I have lady buddy friends. See, not a weirdo. But
you got to be careful. They can't be too hot, or else the women will think that it's an ex-girlfriend you're not over.
Sadly, all of my improv friends are stunning. I can't help that. But I think the body language indicates that they're friends. However, when you look at the photo, I'm easily a head or 2 heads taller than all of them, which probably drives home that height thing. The thing I worry about with that, by the way, is apparently all guys lie on their height. I don't. Because I think it's a horrible idea to begin any kind of relationship by lying. Like, I do not want to have
he's right.
Says the guy who's already over 6 foot. It's like, yes, you don't lie because you have the goods. all my quote unquote 5'11" homies who are probably closer to my height, they gotta fudge because they don't have the goods and they're getting sorted again. So it's very easy for you to say I believe honesty is the best policy when you're looking down at everybody's bald spots.
Perhaps so. Let me rephrase this. People have advised me to factor in height inflation to my profile. That because guys are, as you were noting, adding 1 or 2 inches, I should factor in 6'2" so that women infer that I'm 6 feet tall, and I don't want to do that.
No, that's not necessary. As one of the tall women who would absolutely be sorting for that, I would immediately be like, you're not 6'2", you're a fucking liar. And I would probably be tired of it because you wouldn't be the first person to do it. So if I show up and I'm like, he's exactly what he says he is. This is so nice. It's an immediate green flag before you even say hello.
Well, and it's like saying you have a 9-inch dick when it's really 8. It's
what's the point?
We're already to the point of diminishing returns in that. But as soon as you clear 6 foot, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's all that women are looking for.
6 feet
shorter
tall.
women that are looking for taller guys, and then taller women where it's more of a necessity.
It's taller than me. Is he taller than me?
Yeah.
That's all I really want to know.
Because they want to be able to wear heels.
That's not even it for me. I just don't want to feel like Godzilla.
Yeah.
That's the bigger problem for me. It's all about how it makes me feel to be bigger than the guy. And I'm an inch taller than my husband. but so I've been able to get over it.
Yeah.
But I also threw away all my heels. So, but it's more about us than you. But I'm with you, Andrew. Like, don't start anything with any kind of lie because it doesn't look good.
So what would you say to all the short kings out there?
Tell the fucking truth. Someone's going to be fine with it. But if I show up for a date, if I get dressed, which as a podcaster, that's a big deal. If I get dressed and I go out and I show up and you are 5'8", I'm walking right out the door.
If you say you're 6 foot and you're like, what is the fudge room? What is the fudgeability? If you're just like, you haven't thought about how tall you are.
I think there is no fudge room. Like I
don't know exactly how tall I am.
As someone who's 5'11", if you tell me you're 5'10", I still would probably go on the date. But just like be honest with me. Or you give me the time like, okay, this guy, we seem to have the same interests. He's 5'9". Can I get over that? Let me make the decision before I meet you. So I think there's no fudge room. And most of the women that I know who are on these apps, I think they agree with me because it's a really annoying thing to show up and have someone not be.
I have heard horror stories of women like contacting a guy that they've already agreed to go out on a date with and be like, all right, last chance honesty. I'm choosing my shoes for tonight. Like, are you exactly what you say you are? Yeah. Or do I need to change my shoes? Amnesty. If you say that that you're shorter, but I don't want to look like a fucking idiot on this date.
Yeah, I don't want to be Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're setting us up for, is you make us feel like Godzilla.
So as fortunately, as 6 foot guy, this is always academic to me. This is one thing I'm not insecure about, right? But for the guys that are lower than 6 feet, 5'10", whatever that is, what
short Americans
Jen, do you have a feel for how immutable that is for gals? What I mean by that is like, as a dude who doesn't care about this, who's never had to think about it, I'm like, oh, like this is a great opportunity. Like if a guy's a little bit shorter, you can scoop up and get a really high quality guy who might be good looking and have high income, but he's short, and so he's an undervalued property. It's a great house, and no one realizes how good the house is, right? But I feel like a lot of the time the same thing happens with ladies where they're like, hey, she's terrific, she's a lot of fun, she's 30 pounds overweight, but don't worry about that. And like a lot of guys would be like, well, the 30 pounds is the thing for me. So how fungible is that height thing for most gals? Do you know?
I mean, most women I know are shorter than me, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think the lying about it is the bigger deal. I think that's why it's even discussed. But I mean, Andrew, let me flip this on you. What if someone told you they were my height? They're 5'11". So okay, she's tall. And then you show up and she's 6'7".
Fucking awesome.
Fucking
7. Awesome. I would love to date a woman taller than me just to see what that's like. I think it'd be great. So far,
she'd scoop you up like a little baby.
The more body length for me to rub up against, the better. It's been great. If the surface area is tall rather than wide, fuck yeah, that sounds great. Let's make like crazy space children that are going to be swatting lesser humans with their hands like giants. That sounds amazing. That would be amazing. Find me a 6'7" woman.
If Heaton got on Raya and just only dated WNBA players.
I know.
Yeah,
right?
that sounds awesome.
Well, then I guess you can't relate.
You're just like, I'm a tiny baby. No, I do think that a lot of it is gendered. I do think that like the idea of a woman taller than a man
it bothers us more.
Yes, it is. I don't think guys, I mean, I think it is a thing for some guys that makes them feel inferior, but I don't think that like, if you're a short dude, you're like, most women are taller than me, so I'm into women. So that means I'm into taller women. I think it's, for real shorties, it's a different story. But then also there's the idea of like when they're short women also like just way taller dudes.
Yeah, and I hate them.
They're taking,
yeah. Like I can't date the shorter dudes. Yeah, you can. So stay in your lane.
Sabrina Carpenter, knock it off.
Or Shaq's wife. Did you ever see her? She's a tiny little peanut.
I saw her once with Shaq going into the Hard Rock Casino because it was about to be a hurricane. And I guess that they were like going into the casino for some reason. They were staying at the hotel at the casino. But it was very
in
weird.
Florida, when there are hurricanes, does everybody go into a casino the way people go into basements in Oklahoma during tornadoes? Is this like just a weird
my
fucking
friend
Florida
Anthony
thing?
and Shaq apparently and his family all went in there. But it was hilarious to see Shaq, who is unmissable because he is a massive, massive person, and is proportional, which is the other weird thing about Shaq, is that he just looks like a big, like you just drug out a regular human on like a Photoshop or whatever, and then the rest of his children and his wife who are like at his belly button.
Yeah. Yeah, she's tiny.
Yeah. The Department of writes, Jen's right. You guys should rebrand as We're Always Wrong for the length of this military action. Think about it. Your initials would be WAR.
I'm so annoyed by this email because I think that is such a better name for this show.
We're always wrong.
Yes, I think that is so much better. And as the person who named this show, I'm so mad at myself because that is less dickish than our actual name. I feel like
You'd rather be kind of a dick and then it turns out you're humble than putting yourself down and then becoming more dickish, right?
no.
No?
I think We're Always Wrong just, I don't know, just disarms a lot of the audience. We're like, we're not
It's
wrong.
got some- it's got
Everybody
some-
needs
it's
to
got some-
fight.
Nobody wants that.
See, We're Not Wrong fits Justin perfectly. He loves it. But We're Always Wrong. That is so funny. And I wouldn't have to fight with the whole fucking audience about the fact that wrong actually begins with a W and not an R.
That's not what it
You
says
realize
here.
that We're Always Wrong would have
Yep,
the
it's
exact
still
same
in there.
problem, right?
See, I'm always wrong. It fits. I'm an idiot.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young. Sitting next to me in the studio.
Is Jen Briney the dum-dum.
And from, where are you? Oklahoma City?
Edmond, Oklahoma, just about 40
Edmond,
minutes north of Oklahoma City. I'm Andrew Heaton.
And we're not wrong. Not wrong. Never wrong. On this edition of the program, we got a doozy here for you.
Yeah.
A speed run of a career. Life comes at you fast. The last time that we did a show, Eric Swalwell was the odds-on favorite to be the next governor of California. Today, he is an ex-congressman and possibly might be facing criminal charges in New York City. Also, Viktor Orbán has been dethroned in Hungary. 16 years in control of that country. What does it mean to us? We discuss all that plus your emails. Representative Eric Swalwell resigned from Congress after multiple women accused him of sexual misconduct, including allegations of sexual assault and rape, ending a political crisis that also forced him to suspend his campaign for California governor, all within 72 hours of the news first breaking. Swalwell has denied the most serious allegations, calling them false, while saying that he was stepping down to avoid distraction from his constituents and his office. Federal lawmakers in both parties had increased pressure on him to leave, and the House Ethics Committee opened an investigation as the allegations widened. The allegations surfaced over several days and escalated quickly, beginning with accusations from a former staffer and later expanding to include other women, with one woman publicly alleging that Swalwell drugged and raped her in 2018. The controversy upended the race that, again, he was leading. I mean, that's a jungle primary, but he was leading it from the Democratic side, which made him the odds-on favorite to eventually take the office. Heaton, what is the most shocking part of this story to you?
That he got this far to begin with, I think. I think the banging the Chinese spy was the part of the story where I thought he would drop out. This was what, 4 years ago?
And that was years ago.
That was like
That was
Obama years.
that was-
a long
No,
time
it was
ago.
Trump. Early. It was Trump.
Yeah,
Trump
Okay.
won.
when
He might
that
have been
happened,
banging her during the Obama years.
And
Yeah,
like
that's
to
yeah.
to be clear, I don't think anybody had conclusive proof he was banging the Chinese spy. He was merely hanging out with her a lot and letting her pick interns for his office while he was on the Intelligence Committee. So it's theoretically possible that he was just really buddies with the one woman in Washington he didn't try to fuck. That's theoretically possible.
who did have a reputation and was on wiretap fucking other politicians.
Yes, and was
Fang.
absolutely
Fang, Fang, that's right.
Yeah, Fang, right? So like that bit, like, right, I don't know, when that happened, there were dueling narratives that came out, like the Swalwell camp put out something along the lines of like, here's a quote from an FBI guy saying that that Swalwell was cooperative with the FBI investigation. He immediately cut off all contact with the Chinese asset and also had no problems with intelligence leakage. Meanwhile, McCarthy removed him from the Intelligence Committee and said, if you saw the dossier from the FBI that I just read, you wouldn't put him on any committee, which sounds more likely to me. I don't think that this is a particularly smart guy and certainly not a very shrewd guy in terms of his life decisions, given what we're now seeing in terms of the imminently avoidable political fallout he's had that he could have avoided and still cheated on his wife. Just the incredible lack of discretion. I am not the slightest bit surprised that somebody wanted to yank him from the Intelligence Committee. I'm surprised that that's not when he went down. But here we are, 4 years later, Dick Icarus flew a little too close to the sun. And his wings have melted, and now he's going to crash down to where he should have 20 years ago, which is being the guy that peaked in high school working for a dude like me. Welcome to the middle, Eric.
Jesus, that got personal. Yeah, but in the meantime, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum from that timeline you gave, Heaton, which is that he was chosen by the most powerful political establishment in California to be the next governor. That involved getting endorsements from all of the important unions, from all of the important groups, from sitting Senator Adam Schiff. He was the anointed one. He was Nancy Pelosi's special little boy that had carried all the water that he needed to, said all the lines that he needed to, and was on the glide path to Sacramento. I mean, granted, it's a little shakier than you would have wanted based on that jungle primary. We can get on that in a second. But Jen, I want to get your thoughts here. What to you is the most shocking part of the Eric Swalwell swan song?
The most shocking part to me was the reaction of other members of Congress, like how quickly they were to pull their endorsements and just launch him under the bus. It tells me, because like you said, like it's a really good way to put it, that he was Nancy Pelosi's special little boy. He was all up in the impeachments during the first Trump administration. They wanted him front and center. They seemed to think he was somehow likable. I've always found him incredibly smarmy and arrogant and
farted on camera. Look it up. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, he's not. I've always gotten the ick from Eric Swalwell, but the Democrats seemed to really like him. They kept pushing him forward. And then the minute this came out, it was like immediately Pelosi, Ruben Gallego, they're like good friends. Some
would say best friends. We can get to Ruben in a second.
Yeah, Ruben's an interesting one. He did a press conference where he was just like, I believe the women 100%. I'm not going to call Eric Swalwell. I have not talked to him. Like, basically, he's dead to me. It was very, very weird. So it's just like the reaction of these people so quickly, it makes me feel like they knew the rumors. Because everything I'm hearing from like DC people is that this was kind of like a Bill Cosby situation where a lot of people knew, but they didn't really do anything about it. We're having way too many of these in DC for my liking. So I think
if only Eric Swalwell had staked out a position on believing women in some prior hearing, if only he had put some sort of standard forth with which you can judge men in power, but he's been completely silent on this.
If there are highlight reels out there now, but like his commentary during Trump allegations and his commentary during Kavanaugh specifically about how much you need to believe women. And if you have so many women come forth and say the same thing, either you're a creep or you're the most unlucky person in the world. That's a direct quote. Like he certainly had no sense of a connection between what came out of his mouth politically and what his personal behavior was.
Well, one of the victims said that he seemed to think he was invincible. And that seems about right to me. I think
if you were blessed within the Pelosi circle, why wouldn't you think that?
Yeah, he seems to think that he had gotten away with it for so long. That
like, why would Adam Schiff, if you look at Adam Schiff, who is weirder.
Smarmy in his own right.
He is more smarmy than Eric Swalwell. Debased himself more so on going over his skis on the Mueller stuff, or just as much as Swalwell did, but it was more famous at the time. So he got more airtime on it and paid no cost. He just rolled right into being a senator in California because that whole machine, it runs it, right? Like if they want to push you, they're going to push you. And Swalwell was there. That, my most shocking part is that it happened. Like normally when you've got the protective circle, it doesn't abandon you like that. And I'm still looking for answers as to exactly why. Like Eric Swalwell is not the first Democratic politician to have women come forth and say either A, he was a creep, or B, and I'm going to just for the sake of accuracy in this story, the rape allegation is a up late drinking and then things went too far situation. It was not like a club in an alleyway rape thing. There's another woman that's come out and said that they were drugged. The first accusation of the former staffer insinuates that it might have been drugging without coming out and saying that it was a drugging. But still, that's behavior that everybody knew of him, apparently. Everybody. That he like, and not the rape part, but just that
the drunken dick slinger.
Yeah, that he was a ravenous pussy hound, that he tried to fuck people that that worked for him, and that he did it fairly unrepentantly. And everybody drinks in DC. Everybody's, an alcoholic. So like that scenario happens a lot. Now, whether or not it comes, and Eric Swalwell's attorney came out and said, just because a woman feels regret about something doesn't mean that it's rape. I will leave that to both the actual court and the court of public opinion to referee that. It is something that we've had, out there for a while. But still, normally what happens when you're that important, when you've had that much money invested into you, when you are the narrative that you're going to be the next governor of California, which is an extremely important state for the Democratic Party writ large, you get some protection. You get a weekend at the very least. Like you get everybody standing up and saying, this is not the Eric Swalwell I know. He's a man of integrity. He loves his family, blah, blah, blah. You get at least a couple days. Let's
at least, go through due process and everybody's innocent until proven guilty. Let's all take a deep breath. He deserves his day in court. Yeah.
Can I float a theory then?
Go ahead.
What if he got the endorsements by these people who knew he was kind of smarmy because he's a member of Congress, because they do like to help their own, but they really like Tom Steyer more. Tom Steyer has been around the Democratic Party forever. He's a billionaire. I actually think he has a better chance in California because of his strong environmental record, and he's just more likable than Eric fucking Swalwell. So I'm wondering if maybe one of the reasons they threw him under the bus so quickly is because they never really liked him to begin with.
I don't think he gets to that point unless he was invited in. He was chosen by that machine.
I think Tom Steyer is the one that's being chosen by the machine just because of how fast.
Right now.
But I'm wondering if 2 weeks ago they were saying like Steyer would be better, but like we've endorsed Swalwell. Like I'm wondering.
That's a high risk. Normally that's not the MO of that machine, in my opinion. They pick their horse, they ram it, and that's it.
Clearly not.
But that's what's weird.
Because they sent their horse straight to the glue factory.
They did. And that to me is like, I can't wrap my head around it.
I think something like this was inevitable for this reason. Like, I don't have much latitude for adulterers. I have more latitude for adulterers and rules that don't require public trust. So if it turns out you're a pilot that's cheating on your wife, that really doesn't affect your job, in my opinion. If you're doing something where you could screw me over, like, I don't know, you're my banker or my congressman, it does factor into whether or not I can trust you. Even
for like character reasons? Is that why?
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, because if your wife can't trust you, surely I can't trust you. Like if the person you've made a partnership with cannot trust you, there's no reason to infer you're going to be square and honest with me. And I realize people make mistakes, but if you're in a role of public trust, that does affect my perception of you in terms of whether you're trustworthy. There are certain jobs that you don't really need that much character trust and you just need to be competent, but your character doesn't get into it. Character does matter. To some extent, it's not the only thing. Like there are people I would vote for if they had an affair. Like it's not a blackball situation, but it is like a -5. The part where it goes from that -5 to like, this guy should be out of here is if Swalwell wanted to sling dick with staff members of other staffs that he didn't have power over directly, you know, like that would be.
He allegedly also wanted to do that and also did that.
And yes, that would also be scummy because he'd be cheating on his wife. But like, if you're running a company and you're the manager and you're hitting on everybody that's a subordinate, you're hitting on all of your employees, like, you should be fired. That's a very big, like, in addition to the morality of it, it's also a liability for your company. They need to get rid of you, right? He's doing those, and that's before we even get to the rape allegations. This is just sexual harassment allegations of people he's working for. These are stupid things. Like, it's a guy that looks like that's a congressman, can absolutely get laid in Washington, D.C. without having to hit on his own staff and risk sexually harassing somebody. Like, that's just, it's such a like, there's an old quote by not Metternich, I don't know who, somebody 8 people are going to email me here. French guy that switched sides a lot. He'll pop into my mind later on, but he said it's not that it was illegal, it said it was incompetent. And like, in this instance, there's at least the incompetency and potentially the illegality as well. And for that reason, he was always like, that's just an idiot. Like a smart poonhound could go get laid every night of the week in D.C. without having to fuck anybody in the Capitol, let alone his own staff. And he couldn't even restrain himself that far. He was going to make a misstep at some point. And it's amazing that it didn't happen sooner than this. And I'm glad it did, because guys that are in a position of power like that need to be brought to heel.
Can I just pump the Orwell real quick, just so we all understand that all this shit was very obviously true for a while, and yet there's a lot of people that were very confidently talking about how he was going to be a great governor of California like 7 days ago, and then all of a sudden this hits and everybody turns on a dime and they're like, oh, idiot, moron, like a total creep. Like, I'm not saying anybody on this panel, but that was a thing.
To be fair, I didn't know he was running for California governor.
Yeah, neither did I.
I had no idea.
Fucking cutting edge commentary from the We're Not Wrong program.
But I mean, I don't feel like if you're not super dialed into politics that this was on your radar that much. There's like 55 Democrats running. The only thing I've been hearing about the primary is the fact that there's so many people in it that with the top 2 systems. So in California, only the top 2 move on. And with the Democrats so split, there was a fear that we could end up with two Republicans
at the top.
And then the governor of California would end up a Republican. That is what people are talking about. So the howling of the left that I've seen is we need people to drop out. We need it to happen now. And now all of a sudden a head's been chopped off on that list when the Democrats are saying we need some people to drop out.
The biggest head.
But I don't know if he's the biggest head. I mean, I know
polling wise. Yeah.
Sure. But what I'm telling you is like, didn't know he was running. So it's like you're polling people that are not really paying that much attention yet. I think our primary in California is until June. I know most people that I know in California aren't going to pay any attention to the primary until like the week before, when they look at the list and be like, this is the person I like. Like, people are just not that dialed in, I don't think. So I'm not.
But in that case, it's probably going to be name ID, and he had the biggest name ID.
I don't know. In California, Tom Steyer.
Katie Porter had a lot of name ID.
Yeah, but she, you know, I mean, she's
Eric Swalwell unlikable
has spent
for completely
a lot of
different
time
reasons
on television that liberals watch, is all I'd say.
I'm not saying he's not a big name.
Yeah.
But I am saying I'm pretty dialed into politics. Didn't know the fucker was running. So, I mean, if he can slip by me, I don't think that.
He tried to slip by a bunch of people.
Slip it in. I just want to say this about the timing, because some of the conspiracy theorists about this on the left are like, why now? And it's like, the primary is not for 2 more months. The general isn't for another 6 months. Like, this is actually a pretty good time for this to happen.
Well, except for the fact that the ballots are printed. So he's definitely going to be on them.
Yeah, but it's not an October surprise. Like, this is pretty early. I don't think that this is some kind of weird hit job. Like, these women were lined up to like lie about it because this is the best time to hurt Eric Swalwell. Like, that whole conspiracy theory doesn't work for me. If it happens 2 days before the general election, like, fine, maybe I'm with you. But when I look at these women talk about it and how many people are coming forward, and the fact that Eric Swalwell has given me the X for all these years that I've covered him, I tend to believe the women here. And yeah, I don't think that there's anything suspicious about this timing at all.
I think there's a little bit to that, and I don't think it means that it's not real. But like if I were looking to knock out a guy running for governor, I don't think I would do it 2 days before the election because the information may not resonate fast enough. I'd want to give it some lead time. And if I were these ladies, I don't know, they might know each other. I think all 4 of them are former staffers, right? So I could totally see them like getting drinks at some point. And
The
being
initial
like,
ones, from
that
the
happened.
San Francisco
That happened
Chronicle
to
and
you
CNN
as
report.
well. Like we have an obligation to tell people. Well, like when would we do it? Probably at X day. Like I don't know that necessarily makes it conspiracy. Rather, is just like maximizing.
So
impact.
one of
conspiracy is that what people are saying is that these women, they're basically like political hacks. They weren't.
Oh, they
harassed
fabricated
by
it?
Eric Swalwell. Like it's
they're-
not real.
they are paid by Tom Steyer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's some kind of like political operatives to get him at the perfect time, and like that. I think
One
is
of
just
the
horseshit.
rumors that's going around is that it was his congressional staff that have been horrified about him for a while and were hoping that he would flame out as a candidate. And now it looked like he might actually do it. And so they decided to pull the pin and ruin his career.
Good for them.
If that might be the case, I have a lot of conspiracy theories of like maybe the internal Democratic polling showed that top 2 Republican result was maybe more likely than the public polling even made it. And maybe he's the only one that they knew they had dirt on that could immediately chase him out of the race. And they're willing to roll their dice with Tom Steyer or Katie Porter now, which is not their first choice. Their first choice is Eric Swalwell because he is a dumb pipe. And I mean that apparently
And
true
because
on
Democrats
both
are
words.
dumb. Like they're perfectly fine putting forward the least likable candidate if it's someone's going to follow Pelosi's lead. Like it's such a perfect example of why people hate the Democratic Party, that they would push that guy to be the governor of California. Like I just feel like as a Californian, we have dodged such a bullet here. I'm actually thrilled with it politically because that guy just sucks.
Can we talk about Ruben Gallego?
Yeah.
Best friend to Eric Swalwell comes out very, very pointed, saying that this man lied to me. He led a double life.
He let me down.
You know, let me just say, I'm not here to cast aspersions on Ruben Gallego, although there is a video of Eric Swalwell making out with someone that we now know is a sex worker in Las Vegas. And there's another guy on the bed who also has a beard that looks like Gallego's.
Oh, I
We
forgot
don't know
about
for sure.
that. Yeah.
We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure. Gallego did chair Swalwell's campaign for president. But when he says, I had no idea.
Lies.
It's like, you had no idea. You never, and Gallego, to his credit, has the reputation of being like a regular guy, kind of a normal dude. You're telling me normal dude? You know, the guy who likes to have a couple Tecates in the back of the truck with his Arizona constituency, likes MMA, can talk about it, is not some weird uptight person. You're telling me you never talked to your friend Eric Swalwell about pussy, about side action? You never did it?
You
never ever
with your best friend?
Never. Well, I know for a fact they partied together. But that never came up.
Yeah.
Man, that girl's hot. Oh, I fucked that girl. That never came up. Really?
Just it's kind of fun to watch this press conference that he did yesterday because he looks.
It looks like he has
terrified.
There have been more comfortable press conferences given by people who have suicide vests on and need to talk to the foreign press. Like it was uncomfortable. He looked like he was sweating from his eyeballs.
Yeah, and the way he just. I haven't talked to Eric. I will never talk to Eric. Like it was.
Because here's the way.
It was a lot. Thou doth protest too much, methinks.
If Heaton went down in a absolute cloud of disgrace, and there were things that maybe I had a half thought about, but I didn't know for sure. I had my suspicions, behind closed doors, but it all came out. What I would say is, right now. I obviously don't agree with anything. I believe all the women that have come forward, or believe whatever. I would like to be comfort to his family right now, and I'm not going to say anything in respect for them.
Yeah.
They're dealing with a lot. In respect for them, I'm not going to come out in due time as more information. We're all learning a lot of stuff. I'll have a more fully formed thought. What I wouldn't do is come out and say, I don't know Heaton. I don't know who he is. I don't know why he is a person. I've never really talked to him. Like, to say that we're friends is really like, we're podcast friends technically, but like, I wouldn't do that. Like that is suspicious.
It was so suspicious and so funny.
Because it doesn't cost a lot to just say, look, I'm really concerned for his family and his kids. And I would like to leave them, like, nobody would look at him and be like, what did you know and when did you know it at that? Or at least that you would have the shield to say, oh, he's respecting this situation.
Or even just like, you all know that I've been friends with him for a long time. I'm really surprised about what I'm hearing. So I'm just I don't really want to say anything right now. No comment, and walk away. But he did not do that at all. So,
which makes everybody think
that he's guilty as sin.
That's what it looks like. By the way, you want to know who else came out? The ghost of expulsions past, George Santos.
I know.
Came out and said, oh, by the way, I was next door to Ruben Gallego when I was in the house. I've heard things and I've seen things.
Yeah, he's a trustworthy source.
But like George, I think George Santos is like a consummate serial liar. Also, for Prison Week that I did, I
give
put a
me
lot of effort
9 reasons why you think that.
This is my personal reason that I don't like him. I already thought, like, prior to this moment I'm about to describe, I already thought he should still be in prison. I think he's actually a classic example of somebody that's done white collar crime that should be quarantined for the public. Because
explain the story. Not everyone knows.
Oh, yeah. Just like it's a small thing, but this is why I'm personally irritated with him. Okay. George Santos committed fraud, went to prison for committing fraud, was pardoned by President Trump. I reached out to him and went, hey, I'm doing a prison week. I'm going to prison. I'm talking to the warden. I know that now that you're a free man, you're really big on criminal justice reform. I'd love to get your input on this. And his response was $3,000. And I was like, all right, so you don't actually give a shit about prison reform. It's just yet another thing you can make a buck on. And
I mean, he actually gives a shit about $3,000.
Yeah.
Yes, he gives a shit about $3,000. I don't know. I don't trust that guy at all. Just whatever he says.
I would not take anything, vague posting is vague posting, but like, I would not take something out of his out of his mouth at face value. I would take receipts at face value. If he has a video of somebody coming out of Gallego's office and crying or something like that, I wouldn't distrust it because George Santos posted it. But yeah, so now, and we kind of buried the lead here, but Swalwell resigned from Congress, as did Tony Gonzalez, who we had covered on this show before. There was initially a rumor that Democrats and Republicans were going to go 2 for 2 and also expel Shiftless McCormick from South Florida, and on the Republican side would expel Corey Mills. What I have heard from within Congress is that those two, while they are probably far bigger in terms of like actual fraud, like money fraud, it didn't involve staffers. And so the expulsion pushes for Swalwell and Gonzalez, both of whom had admitted to sleeping with staffers. And
since we did our pieces on Tony Gonzalez, we found out that there was other staffers that were. Yes. It's not just the one.
But he admitted it. He admitted on camera that he slept with her, and so it's like but
it's now like a pattern. It's not but again, like he fell in love with one staff. Like no, he's a serial harasser of his staff.
But that was as it was described to me, it was a situation of like, we need to at least stand up. We are also an employer, Congress. And like, if these other people are worthy of expulsion, it's going to be a more complicated process because they just stole money from the American taxpayer. With these guys, they were fucking people that actually work technically in our office. And so they needed to lean on it. Of course, they leaned on it when they both were able to agree that they were not going to alter the balance of this very thin margin. So
1 for 1.
It's still a political thing at the end of the day, but they did tune up the ban for expulsion. Both of them saw the writing on the wall because if you resign, you still get your pension. If you're expelled, you do not. And so it was in their benefit to resign as opposed to getting expelled.
Plus, if
That
you
and also,
resign, they seal the stuff and don't do an inquest, right? Like if you're like if you resign, the files are sealed, so they're not going to air whatever Congress would find in its files from the various staffer.
Yeah, and I also am curious to know what if Congress would have actually voted on expulsion for both of them. Apparently, Pelosi told her special little boy, Swalwell, that he needed to resign because it was bad for membership to take that vote. Because if we're now, think what you will about George Santos, but the line went prior to expulsion was you were convicted of something. With Santos, it moved down to you are accused, you are indicted, and you're a cartoon who like has money falling out of his pocket, and you're the John Lovett's liar character from SNL. That was the Santos level, but it went down. It became easier to expel people after that. If you're going to move it down to guy who fucks staffers, there's a lot of people in Congress who are going to start pulling on their collar and saying, "Oh, really? That's bad now."
This will be how we get. This might be how we get term limits. It's just all the guys that fuck their staffers leave.
Well, so there was a resolution in March that was put forward by Nancy Mace. And it essentially said that the ethics committee, after they finished their investigations, would have to release the reports to the public, not only like in the future, but in the past. And the vast majority of Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, were like,
nope.
Big fat nope to that idea.
Yeah.
There were, I believe, 65-ish of them that were down with releasing the reports. Ironically, Eric Swalwell was one of them. Tony Gonzalez very much was not. But yeah, most of this Congress was just like, no, we're going to keep this shit secret. Like, we don't want it out. And so I think that this is far more prevalent than we are aware of right now.
The way it was described to me by a woman in DC is that congressmen have to fuck young girls because they're the only people in DC that still think congressmen are impressive. As soon as they get past 25, it's like, oh, gross. Like, you guys are all morons.
Yeah. Andrew, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, I was thinking about this earlier of, would we want to get rid of some of this cover that we give guys for leaving, and the justice be done part of me is like, no, like release the files, take their pension and all of that. But the more practical side of me goes, if we have these easy outs for them, they're more likely to leave. And that might be the best situation. It might be better to have a situation where, hey, if you take off, there's no further investigation and you keep your pension, but you got to take off. If we remove those constraints, I could see an alternate thing where they just don't leave, where they're like, well, if I'm going to get in trouble either way, I'm going to fight this tooth and nail and stick in there. Yeah. And as somebody that would like a higher quality of congressman, I think I'm willing to potentially take the deal of letting some scumbags off the hook if they're more incentivized to actually vacate Congress in the process.
If you look at all the dumb stuff that we check swing, all the dumb stuff that we spend money on, a creep insurance to get him out of power is fine. I'm fine. Whatever. Let him get his, good health insurance. Maybe he can use it for VD testing. Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong. On this edition of on the bonus episode of our program, we'll be talking about Diana Russini and Mike Vrabel, the NFL insider, resigning from the New York Times athletic imprint after the New York Post reported that she was at an exclusive, secluded resort with the New England Patriots head coach, Mike Vrabel.
Go Pats.
Access journalism. Define that how you will on the Patreon episode. Viktor Orbán was defeated in Hungary's parliamentary election, ending his 16-year rule after voters delivered a decisive victory to opposition leader Peter Magyar and his party. While with nearly all the votes counted, Magyar's party secured a 2/3 supermajority, about 138 of 199 seats, while Orbán's party fell to roughly 55 seats. Orbán conceded defeat on election night, acknowledging the scale of the loss and signaling that he would move into opposition. Magyar, a former Orbán ally who broke away in recent years, built a broad coalition that drew support from both traditional opposition voters and disaffected conservatives. High turnout reflected widespread frustration with corruption allegations, economic pressures, and strained relations with the European Union. The result positions Magyar to overhaul Orbán-era changes to Hungary's institutions and potentially unlock billions in frozen EU funds, while also shifting the country's stances on issues like Russia, Ukraine, and EU cooperation. Jen, you're moving to Budapest for a little bit. What should we take from this?
So I think it's important. Like, one of the things that I can't quite let go of is that we have kind of labeled Orbán as a dictator for a while. And I remember in some of our previous conversations about this, Andrew, you asked me a few times, like, how is he a dictator? And I was like, I don't know, because I didn't see any of it. And I think that we throw around that term entirely too much, because a dictator can't be thrown out in an election the way this just happened. What I find fascinating is, now that I know more of the details about what Orbán did, it sure looks like a lot of the stuff that the Trump administration is behind him in trying to do now. He took over the media to the point that the opposition wasn't allowed to be on the media. Basically had a bunch of oligarchs, kind of like the Ellisons, buying up the media and then just doing, pro-Orbán reports. There was just wild lying. I believe I sent messages to you guys when I was there in December. One of the things Joe and I noticed is that on the way from Budapest to the Budapest airport, we were in a cab for 15, 20 minutes. The billboards, man. We counted, I believe it was over 20 of them. I think it was 22 of these billboards that I now know had 3 figures on them. I recognized Zelensky, the president of Ukraine.
Ursula von der Leyen.
Yeah, she's the head of the EU. And then there was Peter Magyar. Yeah. And so they
were all flushing Hungary's money down the toilet.
Yes. And apparently since I left, they upgraded some of the billboards to having Magyar doing cocaine on the golden toilet with Zelensky. So yeah, it got even more mature. But they were basically saying that Ukraine is a threat to Hungary's sovereignty, as if, like, if Ukraine wins this war, that Ukraine's going to invade Hungary. It was fucking wild. And it was very, it's the same kind of arrogance that we're seeing with the Trump administration, where they think that they can just lie and people will buy it. And so when I look at what's happening, I think we should be more careful with the labels that we use, because what we're seeing in Hungary is that these people can be defeated. And they can be defeated with an election. What the Hungarian people did is 80% of them showed up to vote in this election. We have never come close to 80% in my lifetime of turnout. But if we show up, then all of the rigging of the districts, because he was also very big on gerrymandering, just like they are in our Congress. But you can only gerrymander if you know the likely voters. And if everyone shows up, which is unlikely.
And gerrymandering actually matters there, because it's a parliamentary system as opposed to a executive system like we have.
But still, you can only rig maps if you know which voters to circle. And if you have a bunch of voters that usually don't vote and then they show up, those calculations go out the window. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, I do think that the people that are saying that watching Hungary should give us some hope for, what's going on in our country, I see it. Even though Hungary is, it's not that big. There's about 10 million people in the entire country, which is about the size of Los Angeles County. It's not huge, but they were more advanced in how far Viktor Orbán had gone to trying to rig the systems. He had put in a bunch of Orbán-friendly judges, like very similar to what the Trump administration is doing, got so much further, and yet lost that election. And so I think that's just a really good sign. And then when I look at this and like what can be learned by it, I think there's going to be lessons learned by both sides. I think there's going to be lessons learned.
Both sides of what? The Hungary equation or our political divide?
Our political divide, just like global. Because I think we are having a moment now in places all over the world where we're kind of looking at these more authoritarian figures or more democratic figures. And I think if you're on the side of we don't really want strong men, like I'm looking at the role of independent media in Hungary and how beneficial that was, because Peter Magyar was able to get his message out despite being banned from classic the television stations and the public media. He wasn't allowed on those, and yet independent media carried his message forward. When I saw with my own eyes the amount of propaganda that was being funded by the Orbán side, it was literally everywhere, and he still was able to overtake that. I think we're going to learn the power of independent media, but I think the forces that are against us are going to learn that too. And looking at Trump's tweets, I believe it was over the weekend or late last week, where he's now going after independent media people. Funny list, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones. Yeah. But they're starting, I think, to really understand the power of independent media. And so I think we're in a bit more danger, perhaps, than we were before of getting the eye of Sauron pointed towards us. But while we have the ability to do this as freely as we have, like looking at how it was used in Hungary, I think it's a roadmap for how we beat these people going forward.
Magyar, in a very contentious interview with one of the main television stations, which had been very, very unkind to him, said he was going to nationalize it in a interview last night. Heaton, what do we take away?
I think that Orbán losing is good for the reasons that Jen brings up. I've done a little bit more research on him since when we first discussed this topic. I'm by no means an Orbán expert, but what I've seen I don't like. Orbán has been pushing what his words, illiberal democracy. Not something I'm making up, something that he proposes, and it's basically majoritarian rule minus constraints, for lack of a better term. In America, we've always had a tension between majority rule and individual rights. We get to vote on stuff, but there are certain things that we can't vote on. You get to do that regardless of how we vote on it. And most of the American experience has not been one of those things is good and one of those things is bad. It's really been a question of who gets to be a part of that franchise, and that's where we've fallen down historically. Orbán is doing was doing, as Jen brought up, a lot of illiberal things where with the judges, I believe the mechanism that they had in place was, let's put in retirement ages for judges. That way we can liquidate a bunch of them simultaneously, and I can put all of them in. Like if whoever the next president is was able to get a law saying we can kick out all judges over the age of 65, they would get to replace 3/4 of the judges immediately. With the media,
I take a guess that a judge would hold that up.
I think so too. I'm not worried about that happening anytime soon. I think with the media thing, I want to say the way they were doing it was they banned foreign-owned media, and then they also would have the government buy advertising from private media that they liked. So I think it would kind of be like if the Trump administration just bought tons of advertising from America One Network in order to prop them up or something to that effect. So they weren't censoring internal media so much, but they were swamping it by having a state-run apparatus there. And overall, it is a democratic country. As evidence of that, Orbán just lost, but it was a situation where they were trying to rig the game. It's a competitive democracy, but it's sort of like in football. If one football team got to choose the referees, yeah, but it's very, very slated against them. So good that he lost for that reason. I don't like that. The bit where I think this is perhaps overstated by other pundits that are kind of championing this as a rebuttal to populism and the standard bearer of nationalism and populism in Europe has finally been rebuffed by the liberal masses. I think that might be going a step too far. When I look at Orbán and Orbanism, I see three things. One, there is a nationalist perspective that Hungary should be for Hungarians, and not the idea that they're not going to be in the European Union. Everybody in Hungary wants to be in the European Union, including Orbán, but the idea that we're not going to take in immigrants. That's just, we don't want to do that. We want to be an ethno state. That's provision number one. Provision number two that Jen alluded to is Ukraine and Russia is not our fight. We don't want to be in there. We are going to be pushing for peace. We are going to be pushing for negotiations. And then number three, the corruption and authoritarian bullshit that we've been talking about. The guy that's incoming with Tyza, Magyar, does not seem to me to be a pushback on the Hungary for Hungarians provision, nor on the stay out of Ukraine. He is, from what I can tell, he's a former Orbán guy. He's an opposition figure that used to be a part of Fidesz, and Hungarians have not changed in terms of the nationalism that's been a part of their ruling structure for 16 years, nor in terms of how they want to interact with Russia. It's really, I suppose, getting rid of the authoritarian bullshit, one can hope, and the corruption. I read that corruption was very bad under Fidesz, and that's just not popular, particularly if your economy is not doing very well. So this is all to say, I do not think that this is like the end of Le Pen, Orban, all of the populist nationalist parties in Europe. I don't think that, like, we did it, gang. I think it's more likely fatigue from having a political party in power for 16 years combined with our economy's not doing so hot and there's visible corruption. I don't know that this is a huge ideological rebuff. It might be. I hope so. I don't like any of the liberal bullshit that they were pulling, but that's kind of my read on it.
I will say to your point, Heaton, that what stuck out to me was that everybody found a thing to be happy about. Mm-hmm. Like you had Alex Soros, throwing a party that this was the greatest moment in history that Orbán was defeated. And then I saw a lot of people that were like kind of CPAC-y MAGA conservatives that were like, yeah, whatever, Orban's gone and the guy that replaces him is just as much of a hawk on immigration, which is the only thing that we ever really cared about to begin with. Yeah. At least in terms of Europe, for as much as any American cares about Hungary in general. Really, the only thing that was, I think really has even put Hungary on the map for that is because Orbán was very forward about coming to America and pointing out that, like, hey, we're the one country in Europe that's standing up to the immigration push and blah, blah, blah. And so I don't think that changes all that much. It feels like a lot of more local stuff, like to your point, Jen, the idea of, all right, if the economy's not doing great, which apparently it isn't, and there's this widespread issue of corruption, and every other billboard is an AI picture of, a cartoonish Magyar doing coke with Zelensky, then it's like, what are we doing? Like, how much is this really serving us to begin with?
And Magyar ran on bringing prices down because, like, when we found out that they weren't on the euro, we were expecting low prices, and it wasn't like that at all. I found it incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
I will say, though, the Ukraine thing, this is going to be a bigger deal outside of Hungary because Orbán, in the EU, they were as a bloc wanting to send money to help Ukraine with the Russian war, and it was Hungary that was holding that money up. So with this, Magyar has been very clear that, like, they are now going to help in the Ukraine war. This is one of the reasons that propaganda was out there because Orbán was basically making Ukraine seem like a threat, which is total bullshit. But it is true that if Orbán was thrown out, that money would flow from the EU to Ukraine. That is now going to happen. The Ukrainians are very happy, but also the rest of the EU is happy because now the EU without Orbán, they are going to make more decisions as a bloc, which when we are behaving as badly as we are, I also think that the anti-Americanism, they're going to be able to move forward without America in a more cohesive manner without Orbán there playing the role of Trump's friend. So it is going to be bigger than Hungary.
For Ukraine.
I think for the entire EU. I think it's going to be easier for them to make decisions as a bloc, especially in the next 2.5 years. I mean, I think we underestimate how important Trump threatening Greenland was and remains. He did it again yesterday. So it's like the Europeans are trying to move on without us. And I think that there is more, it's more likely now, and I obviously can't predict what this is going to look like, but I think it's more likely now that the Europeans are going to behave more like the United States of Europe, where they're going to behave as a bloc and make decisions as a bloc. And
isn't that the point of hasn't that been like the goal since the 90s?
It is. But when you have a member state that is so blatantly on the Trump team, like to the point that JD Vance was there last week trying to help Orbán win, which was like huge backfire because no one likes JD Vance. But like, if you don't have that person anymore in the EU who's going to stop things like money going to Ukraine or whatever they want to fund next, if you don't have Orbán there to kind of play the MAGA role in the EU, I do think it's going to be easier for the EU to do whatever they need to do without having this, for lack of a better term, MAGA influence inside of their coalition.
I think that's true, but I wouldn't say it's MAGA necessarily. Like the EU's had two different camps in it from the get-go. You had the nationalist camp that went, we're entering an open market between sovereign nations. And that was very much the British mindset for a long time till they took off. Of we're not entering the United States of Europe. We're entering a common market between allied nations, and that's it. And then you had the flip side, which was the more technocratic Brussels idea of I'm not German, you're not French, we're both European. And the Eiffel Tower belongs to both of us, and the European Union will eventually become the United States of Europe, and the national boundaries will just become kind of historical flavor delineation. So Orban was more on that national, or I should say, was fundamentally on the nationalist side of that. Of no, it's not that I'm European and I happen to live in Hungary. I am a Hungarian, and Hungary is a part of that common market. With him gone, though, I do think you're right. Him leaving, though, is pulling that restraint out, and so Europe can much more act like we're a big federated country as opposed to an alliance of sovereign states.
And to be clear, I'm not saying that culturally there's going to be some kind of merge here, but I think economically, like I said, like Orban was holding up the Ukraine money. And so I think economically that union is going to be able to behave more how the other states want to behave without the roadblock that was Orban.
I mean, I don't know the exact mechanisms there of like, I guess the money's going through the Council of Europe as opposed to the European Council, and therefore Magyar will appoint the minister of I don't know the EU mechanisms by which they do all of that. I assume it's through the European Council, but yeah, sure. I think like that being a restraint's going to leave and it'll affect things, but I don't think it's going to go away either. Like, I mean, in Europe, I think that nationalist sentiment is still there. And like, I don't know, it wouldn't surprise me if like Le Pen or somebody like that gets a really big seat in the next few years.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it makes more sense for the European Union to be funding the Ukrainians than it is us.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Like,
And now they will.
yeah. So it makes more sense to me. We're Not Wrong Pod at gmail.com, where you need to go if you want to get bonus episodes of, wait, no, We're Not Wrong. That's where you email. That's just where you email. It's not where you go to get bonus episodes. That's the other one. This season on We're Not Wrong, right? Heaton goes weird eye for the straight guy on Justin's new wardrobe. Jen visits Euro Disney in Paris. Andrew becomes an Abraham Lincoln impersonator, specifically the one from Star Trek's episode 22, The Savage Curtain. Jen visits Tokyo Disney. Justin's daughter Bella says her first word. It's Patreon. And Jen visits Shanghai Disney. I look forward to all this. Although Bella's already said her first word. And it was unfortunately not Patreon, so she will not be getting paid this month.
What was it?
Mama. Mama.
Not the favorite, Dada.
No, I'm Papa.
Papa on the
Yeah. No, she does a very cute thing where if I am trying to eat her feet or eat her food, she just goes, Papa. It's adorable.
I heard her say bubble this morning.
Bubble? That's how she talks.
She's a lucky kid. Her parents let her blow bubbles indoors.
Yeah.
My mother would never.
Yeah. Well, eventually. When one of us slips and busts our head, then that'll be the end of the bubbles. Will you help me? Afro Man is what we talked about last week. Will you help me repair my gate? Right. My sole complaint about the Afro Man case was that despite winning, he was still ordered to split lawyer costs with the plaintiffs. I believe the legal term for that is bullshit.
Yeah, it could be. One of the things that bothers me about talking about the defamation lawsuit is I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to defamation lawsuits. I think I've got a pretty good head when we're discussing constitutional law, but I do not know how the various intricacies of court work. But I agree with you on the face of it. Seems like he shouldn't have to pay for the attorney bills. That being said, we can take some solace in knowing that he's increased his streaming by 500%. Since the album came out. I think that this has all benefited him overall. I think he's net positive with the gate and the attorney fees.
Yeah. High in the middle and round on both ends, right? As somebody who grew up in Ohio, I can confirm that it is not cool at all. Also, I paid more in taxes when I lived there than when I lived in Los Angeles. I don't know if that's a interesting. I would like to see your books.
Ohio has a weird lack of sidewalks. Like, I don't know what you're paying taxes for if it's not for roads and sidewalks.
Somebody else wrote in, and I didn't put it in, but they ranked Ohio cities as Cincinnati number 1, Cleveland number 2, and Columbus number 3. And I think I would agree. Cincinnati is my favorite Ohio city. And also they have Kentucky on the other side of the river, and they still smoke in bars there, and I really appreciate that.
Ew.
Reminds me of my childhood.
Did you guys see there was this documentary that came out a couple of years ago of balloons over Cleveland? Do you know about this?
No.
This is like in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. Cleveland, kind of slumping Midwest Rust Belt city. Some guy convinces the city council, hey, we're going to celebrate Cleveland by releasing 1 million balloons on Saturday at noon. So the city buys 1 million helium balloons and releases them. And no one thinks about, is
What
this going to have
happens
any of it? Yeah, no one thinks about like airplanes falling out of the sky, like redirecting traffic, the whole thing winding up in a river. It was this nightmare in a really funny documentary.
Keep that funk alive, writes, allow me to introduce the group to the legendary Bootsy Collins, residing on his 20-acre property and recording studio in 2 counties west of Adams County, Claremont. So we're talking about cool people that live in Ohio. The fact that Afro Man from Palmdale, California, moved out to Adams County. Bootsy Collins of Parliament Funkadelic, apparently only a few counties over.
Wait, he moved to Ohio?
Afro Man?
I don't mean that as a slight. It's just like if what little I know of rappers, I would assume a rapper who lives in California would not pick rural Ohio as a base of operations. I did end up interviewing him, by the way. I interviewed him on the day after we did our thing on him. Had I known that, I would have asked why Adams County. I just assumed he was from there.
No, Palmdale, California. I mean, that's what he in his album, his first album that was very successful. He raps about being from Palmdale. I assume, it's cheap. You can buy a crap load of land. Some people just want to be, much in the same way that you came from a rural area and decided you wanted to go to the big city and be a dazzling urbanite. Sometimes people go the opposite direction.
Fair. Okay.
You know what I heard?
What?
This could all be bullshit. But I heard that Viktor Orbán has a bunch of land in rural Hungary, and he kind of created a Neverland ranch situation for himself that had zebras, and then the zebras disappeared. So people are now like, where the fuck are the zebras?
All right. Write in about that. We need to know more about that.
Tell me everything you know about this, including if it's bullshit. But apparently that's one of the reasons people didn't like him, because he had this weird
zebras
ranch. Yeah.
Will no one speak for Lickum Low Lisa, writes, did the police go too far by breaking the gate and taking down the door? Legally, no. Once they have a warrant signed by a judge, they are now empowered to enter that house. They've been given the awesome authority to go into what the founders of our Constitution believed was the most sacred of places, your home. They can take the hinges off the doors and detain everyone who is inside. Now, if it is a standard warrant, they are required to knock and announce. Police with a warrant open the door. But after they wait a reasonable amount of time, and that's in scare quotes, for someone to open the door, they can then break it down. Because this was a possible kidnapping, they might have had a no-knock warrant. Disabling the cameras has become common practice since 2021, when 2 FBI agents were killed serving a warrant. The FBI agents were knocking and announcing when the subject used his Ring doorbell camera to locate the agents and fatally shot them through the door. I haven't looked at the case, but my question is, how did they get a warrant on such flimsy probable cause? I wouldn't swear out a warrant on the just say so of one informant. I doubt a federal judge would sign off on that level of probable cause. Did you get any information on that in your recent interview?
Yeah. In terms of the, first of all, thank you, listener. I think that those are all very salient points, and I appreciate the additional info on that, because that is a realm that I don't know a whole lot about. So thanks. I talked to him a little bit about that in the first interview before the internet connection collapsed, and we spoke, I believe, a little bit about it in the second interview. I think your point is correct, because I asked him specifically, why did they disconnect the camera? Because that sounds very odious, right? And even he told me the rationale that they promulgated in court was that if there was a kidnapping victim in place there, they wanted to deprive the kidnapper of being able to figure out where they were, or something like that. There's a rational basis for that particular thing. I've asked him about this twice, and I think the thing is that they were assholes. That is really what this kind of boils down to. Is they did have a warrant. I don't know the delineation between no knock or knock, but they had a warrant. They broke it down. The impression I got was that when he confronted them and was like, hey, are you going to help me put my door back up, that they were dicks about it and were like, not our problem, pal. And we're just very snide about it. And that's really what set him off. I think that if they'd said like, hey man, like, you're a citizen in good standing, and we had a reason to believe that you'd kidnapped somebody. We were completely wrong. We apologize. The station's going to make sure you're taken care of. We'll work something out alternately. Sure, let me grab my toolkit out of my car. I don't know what would have happened, but I think that if they'd approached it in a more, according to him, if they'd approached it in a respectful manner, this would not have gone nearly as far as it did. And I think that's the onus for it. And I don't know, watching some of that testimony, I've not watched the whole trial, but the bits that I have seen, some of the cops that are there strike me as not having to do a lot of bending in their day-to-day line of work. Like, there's an attorney that asks the guy a question at one point, because cop number one is saying, I don't know if Afro Man banged my wife, in a bizarre attempt to prove that ambiguity lends to the hurt or whatever. So the police or the attorney goes, so to be clear on this, you don't know if your wife has committed adultery? And the cop is like, you want to go there? And it's a very like I'm gonna hit you with my baton kind of vibe to it. And I don't know. I get that probably was the case. I think that Afro Man probably assessed that correctly, that there was a power dynamic in a small town police constabulary that was not used to getting pushback. Yeah,
and they wound up all getting humiliated on the internet forever.
Yeah, and one more thing, because I did talk to him about this. That the bit that bothered me in that case that I mentioned last week, and I mentioned on my show as well, was I did feel kind of for the guy that he referred to as a pedophile. And my initial reading on it, just based on the clips he put on his website and the bits where it was referenced in court, it sure looked like he just said the guy looks like a pedophile to me and ran with it. When I talked to him, when he first started putting stuff together and making funny songs, he had multiple people reach out to him to say, oh, that guy, Deputy what's his name, loves to get 17-year-old girls drunk and have sex with them. And, whether that's true or not, that is what he relayed to me as multiple allegations he received from the community. And he looked at that and went, oh, the guy's a statutory rapist, and that's why I'm going to call him a pedophile. And so I think a lot of some of that where I was like, that seems unfair. I'm now like, well, if I were getting credible reports of that, I so it was like
the Drake pedophile. The just under the limit, on the wrong side of town pedophile.
I mean, if we're getting terminological here, it wouldn't technically be a pedophile because Nope, stop it. I'm not going to let you do it. I'm not going to let you do it. In fact, we'll beep out everything that Heaton said. This is the Twitch debaters trap, and I'm going to give it to everybody here, including my friend, who I would never abandon, like Ruben Gallego did to Eric Swalwell. Never, ever, ever start going down the road of what the technical definition of pedophile is. It benefits nobody. You know what? That's probably true. Can we just excise this whole thing, Will and Justin? Just cut out this whole bit?
I know. This is a teachable moment. I want this to be a teachable moment. This happens all the time. And it usually, the first time I saw it was on Twitch debates for whatever reason. If you spend enough time arguing with people on the internet, you eventually end up at, technically it's called a ba-ba-ba, so it's not a ba-ba-ba. And it never benefits everybody. And all it does is give people who have bad faith the ability to say that you said that blank wasn't a blank. We're never doing it. Not in my house.
That's a really good point. Statutory rape is bad. Statutory rape is bad. Also, yes, Justin, I think you're right about it. That's kind of like whenever I have to go, listen, I also hate Trump, but he didn't shoot a puppy. I don't get anything out of this. There's no benefit to me. Yeah. Good point.
Okay. Crooked Popo brings us on home on Afro Man. I can't believe that nobody mentioned what I thought was the funniest part of the Afro Man story. In the case, the WNR audience has not been following the story. Namely, he got one of the cop's ex-wife to take the stand and testify that she didn't object to the lyrics saying that Afro Man fucked her. That is some chef's kiss, high-grade divorce spite. The only thing that could have made it funnier is if she actually fucked Afro Man after the fact to give him the silver bullet of truth against the defamation lawsuit.
She's a hero.
It was funny. I agree. Yeah, that was a really funny thing. The other funny thing too was I don't know how much the attorney coordinated with Afro Man to bump up his profile, but whenever the police would bring up that hurt my professional standing, he'd go, "Do you mean this song?" And then would play
the entire song
from the album in order to put it on the internet to get it more publicity. It's they're going to have to rename the Streisand effect the Afro Man effect. It was even beyond
Oh my
that.
God. I can't. There is part of me that does feel on a human level what it's like to be totally humiliated on the internet like these cops were. I do feel for them. But boy, do you have a hard time not seeing that there is a cause and effect. Like in the way that I would feel sorry for somebody who stepped on a rake they knew was there and it hit him in the face. I'd still feel bad because they got hit in the face with a rake. But guys, what are you doing? Like it already was a bad idea. It was a local dispute that got blown up to the internet. Are you really like, and then also they did it bad. Yeah. They didn't even key in on the things that they would have needed to do to have a successful defamation case. So all it did was make them all more famous and make Afro and give him a whole new second wind.
I'm guessing that no attorney would take this case and that they finally got an attorney that, and I don't know this for a fact, I don't know the guy, but my guess is they got an attorney who wasn't very good because he's the only one that was willing to tackle it. And everybody else they talked to was like, you're going to lose this. I'm not touching this. And as a result, they went in with bad legal advice in a bad situation.
Yeah. Our other story was Kanye West being denied access to the United Kingdom. To all the South Side people that know me best, writes, much of what can be said about Kanye West can also be said about the soul of Chicago itself. Bipolar and unpredictable like our weather, ambitious like our skyline, and endlessly reinventing itself after collapse. He is an artist defined by reaching new heights, a creative earth-shattering beauty shaped by the same force that lifted steel towers from the lakefront. Like Chicago, the city of big shoulders, he carries a chip against the world, bristling at coastal elitism and external judgment. He's a musical phoenix, burning himself down and emerging anew, much like the city after the Great Fire. His gospel work is inseparable from the black churches of the South Side, while his rise is as a high school dropout reflects the city's defiant faith in reinvention to a land, unlikely friendships at time with two POTUSes. He is a nonstop gust of speaking like the Windy City's nickname. Yet, even his most troubling chapters mirror Chicago's own unresolved tensions. His flirtations with extremist ideas reflect historical currents that have long troubled the city. Black anti-Semitism on the South Side with the Nation of Islam, the right to free speech and march as Nazis in majority Jewish Skokie. Even his George Bush doesn't care about black people can be related to the 150 years of racial unrest between every ethnic group in Chicago.
Kanye
I cut it off. I cut it off there for the record.
Can I talk to this listener?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Justin, quit writing into our.
I did not. It was not me. It was not me. No, in fact, the part that I cut off was then he talked about how the Kanye song "Homecoming" is an ode to Chicago, which I really don't like. As a Kanye fan, I just think it's way too on the nose. He's talking about a girl. And then at the end, he's like, if you haven't guessed, I'm talking about Chicago. And it's like, yes, I got it when you talked about the lakes. Like, it's fine. Anyway, Jen is 100% right about Kanye, right? You shouldn't troll her so much about Kanye. Save it for her unwavering support and defense of totalitarian regimes. I know you love Kanye, but he has earned his infamy along with his fame. No artist is so good that they must be invited to your country. See? Someone's defending you.
What the fuck? I don't even. I don't think I can take this. That's absurd, right? Like, what are they even referring to?
By the way, I'm polar, right? My mom and uncle both have bipolar disorder. I have seen the worst of it with my mom, but my uncle has led police chases, attacked people with machetes, and had to be arrested and forcefully committed multiple times. When you are manic with bipolar, it can literally make you insane. My uncle walked with a cane during his mania for no reason, and he has no memory of it. He says and does things that he would never do or say if not for the mania. I am not surprised by Kanye's behavior when he is manic. We got a few of these about bipolar stuff that it is beyond the pale. Some of the outgrowths of it.
Were they saying that it's an excuse for Kanye's behavior?
I think that
And
I would say more of an explanation than an excuse. Excuse comes with the idea that you should on some level rebalance your judgment against them, where it is more of just judge them however you want. But this is something that happens with people with that affliction.
Okay, good to know.
Only in America writes, I will never forget seeing police guard Nazis who were protesting a pride parade in Detroit in the 2010s. One side of me thought, you lost World War II, get lost, losers. And another side of me realized how incredible it is that America gives tolerance to the most intolerant of people. Empathy without condoning could influence hateful individuals toward tolerance more than yelling at them ever could. We all saw how yelling at MAGA worked out. However, the U.S. mainland wasn't bombed by Germany during world wars, and that does dampen the ability for tolerance for extremist rappers in the UK. Back in the day when the ACLU was actually committed to free speech and not to, liberal activism, that was their famous thing. That was the way that they described themselves, and their mission was that, they protected free speech even when it was a right for a Nazi, I think in that the Skokie thing that the first email was talking about, I think it was in that city. I think the First Amendment is something that all Americans should treasure. It is something rare, and it is something that we often take for granted because it does not exist in other places. As for the UK, and we got a lot of emails. I'm like, well, you have to understand the UK's relationship with Nazis. It's like, Kanye had a 6-month sojourn where he said wild stuff. And by the way, none of it was any wilder than what David Bowie said when he was in his Hitler fetish phase. So come on.
David Bowie had a Hitler fetish phase?
Made an actual song called Heil Hitler. That's a real banger, which is a problem because it's really catchy. Anyway.
Wait, David Bowie had a Hitler phase?
Yeah.
Really? What did he do?
Yeah. With what?
Well, what, did he make songs about?
He did not make songs about it, but he dressed like a Nazi, and he talked about how the Nazis were cool and fascinating, and then moved on. Artists having Nazi fascinations is not new. The difference is that he's Kanye, and so he has a certain mind share in the culture. And again, unlike all these other artists, he made a banger that said Heil Hitler. It's unfortunate. I wish it were a worse song. It would have gotten less attention.
I hate this topic.
Monster writes, the ability to enter a foreign coverage is a privilege, not a right. The only wish of the British people is that my only wish of the British people is that the hate preachers face the same kind of ban as Kanye did. If you come to our island with thoughts of spreading an ideology of hate and division, you are not welcome, whatever flavor that might be. All I will say is there's... If some of the clips that I've seen of imams in London and the kind of stuff that they say are true, then it pales in it is far spicier than anything that Kanye ever said. Finally, podcast recommendation writes, you all, especially Jen, should listen to a recent episode of the excellent podcast We're Not Wrong, where they talk about the BAFTAs and how sometimes mental illness can cause your mind to identify, dwell on, and express the worst possible thoughts. The host really pushed back against the simplistic mental illness doesn't make you do this bad thing narrative.
I don't think that's a fair comparison. I mean, especially when we're talking about Kanye versus the person who was at the BAFTAs who had Tourette's, completely different thing, and was yelling words.
Kanye says that word a lot too, for the record.
He sure fucking does. The guy at the BAFTAs, you have to remember, was there because he allowed a camera crew to follow him around, and he was filming a documentary to raise awareness. Kanye West was not trying to go to the UK to raise awareness for his mental illness. He was trying to make a fuckload of money as a headliner. As a headliner to a festival. It was a completely self-centered Kanye thing because Kanye. So it's not the same thing at all. I mean, this was someone who was trying to tell people, this is what my mental illness looks like, trying to make it easier for other people that have it. Kanye has done the opposite for people that have bipolar. He's giving it all a bad name. So, especially by using it as an excuse. So, no, I don't think it's a fair comparison at all. It's Kanye bad. I'm still on Kanye bad. Boils down to that. I don't like the motherfucker. So it's that simple.
New album's good.
You are such a gross Kanye fan.
Heaton went through my
what
wardrobe.
What does he have to do?
Heaton went through my wardrobe and found my Vote Kanye hoodie, and I'm like, no, it stays. God. One day I'll be able to wear it again.
What would be the red line for you, Justin? For you to be like, ugh, bad person. It certainly wasn't abandoning his children.
No, I mean, look, I don't, and we're going to get into this with the Diana Rossini thing. Like, I don't have a stringent moral code for my entertainers. I want my entertainers to be interesting. I want my entertainers to create art that makes me think about things that matter to me. Nobody has done that more than Kanye. I don't expect him to be a good person. There is certainly a line in which I'll talk about Kanye less, and he's certainly hit that with his Hitler phase. He's not a huge fan of that. But like, to renounce him, I don't know. I think renouncing people is just lame and boring.
But you're basically on there being like, I love Kanye.
I do.
It's a little different.
The new album's good.
Oh my God.
It's better than his previous few albums.
People are just going to keep paying this asshole.
I mean, see, there we go. That's what you're mad about. You're mad that I would buy tickets to the Wireless Festival if it were to happen.
I'm not really mad about
You're disappointed.
any of it. If I have emotions about it, it's that you keep making me talk about Kanye.
Yeah.
I just want to pretend the man doesn't exist and go back to my life of not caring about him whatsoever. And you make that hard.
Honestly, Jen, that's about where I'm living. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I think he was married to Kim Kardashian at one point. That's about what I know. That you guys fight about it. And I'm like,
well,
this
is the funny part about that topic is that I picked that topic because it was an interesting idea of like, when does art become odious enough that you would deny somebody entry to your country?
It was a good topic.
Like,
Yeah.
and it kind of gets consumed, like all Kanye conversations, into just a judgment of Kanye. Like, do you think he's an awful person? Do you think or are you a fan of his work? Are you a former fan of his work and then felt betrayed? And there's a lot of points for that. Like, there are some people that never got over that he liked Trump. And then there's some people who never got over the anti-Semitism stuff. And I don't blame anybody for having those opinions.
But you sure like to poke me for having them.
Wow.
Poke.
Well, that's, now we're just revealing why the show exists.
Yeah, exactly.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On this week's PX3, a lot more on the Swalwell stuff, including I go deep into my conspiracy. Well, I just have my questions as to exactly, what the Pelosi machine knew and when did they know it, and why does the leading Democrat in that race get, again, just executed, just gangland executed that fast. We also have Julie Grace Brufke, who is one of the big gossip reporters out there in DC, on what she knew and exactly how rare somebody like Swalwell is. And then on Friday's edition of the show, the New York Times a couple of weeks ago, and we haven't talked about it here, but Act Blue, they dropped a big Act Blue story. And we bring on Dave Leventhal to break down that. But more, it was a story so damning about Act Blue. Act Blue came out and renounced their lawyers that were quoted in the New York Times article. Jeez. Never a great sign.
No.
When
is this the same organization that like fired their quality control attorney like a year ago for blowing the whistle on them being corrupt or whatever?
Yeah. That also takes a 4% cut of all donations to liberal causes. It is not just campaigns. It is also unions and NGOs. If you are donating to a liberal cause, Act Blue takes 4%.
That's gross.
Anyway, that's on PX3. Mr. Andrew Heaton, who is ambling into the orphanage this week?
I've got a military analyst on talking about Iran. What I find interesting about the conversation, we're not going into the oughts and shoulds, which is typically where I dwell on things like this of like, is intervention a good idea? What are I feel very comfortable there. This is much more me asking somebody who knows about stuff I don't know anything about in terms of why the conflict in Iran is different from a military perspective to that of Afghanistan and Iraq, and specifically what changed that made us want to go in. The foreign policy complex of the United States in general, but in particular the neocons, have wanted to do regime change in Iran for the last 40 years. So why now? What was the thing? Doesn't sound like nukes was actually the operative reason, nor do I think it was. And he explains why something changed within the military apparatus that made it happen.
All right. You'll have to listen to that. It's a hell of a tease. Jen, sizzling on the congressional dish.
Yeah. So the latest episode that's out is about the attempts at voter suppression. So there's been a lot of confusion between the SAVE Act, which is the number one most looked up bill on congress.gov right now, which has been dead for a year, and the Save America Act, which actually, if you look that up, you're not going to find the right version because they passed it in a very tricky way. So I just clear it all up. I let you know what the SAVE Act is, what the Save America Act is. I tell you exactly what's in them. I read them both. We look at the executive orders. We look at, where they are in the process, if they have a chance of becoming law, but also the big picture of what's being attempted here and what we need to watch out for to protect our own votes in 2026. So if you've been confused about it at all, check out that congressional dish and we should clear it up for you.
All right. And that'll wrap it up for us here on the program. For Andrew Heaton and Jen Briney, I'm Justin Robert Young saying, we're always wrong. Or at least that's what Jen wants the name of the show to be.
Dog and Pony Show audio.